All right, today we're talking about Alabama. And I'm willing to bet that when you hear that name, some very specific, very powerful images probably pop right into your head.
Seriously, take a second. What's the first thing you think of? For so many of us, it's a huge part of American history itself.
Yeah, you probably picture the civil rights movement, right? Those historic marches, the brave stance for justice. I mean, you've seen the movies, you read the books. And look, that is absolutely a vital, undeniable piece of Alabama's story, no question. It's a history of struggle and massive change that really did shape the entire nation. But like with any place, there's always more to the story. What if I told you there are these other layers of innovation, of culture, of sound that are just as much a part of the state's DNA? So yeah, let's dive into the story you probably don't know. Okay, so let's start with music, because way up in a small corner of Northwest Alabama, something truly incredible was happening. A sound was born, a sound so powerful, it drew the biggest names in music to a tiny town that, let's be honest, most people couldn't even find on a map. And here it is. This is Fame Studios. Looks pretty unassuming from the outside, right? But that sign, it says, "Through these doors walk the finest musicians, songwriters, artists, and producers in the world." And believe me, they were not kidding. Just look at this list. The Rolling Stones, Aretha Franklin, Cher, Paul Simon. I mean, the list goes on and on. You've got British rock gods, the Queen of Soul, pop icons, folk legends. They all made the trip to Alabama, looking for something special, some kind of magic. So what was it? Well, that magic actually had a name, and they got a shout out in one of the biggest rock anthems ever. But who exactly were the Swampers? Okay, and this is where the story gets really fascinating. The Swampers, they were a group of all-white session musicians, and get this, at the absolute height of segregation in the Deep South, these guys were the funky, soulful engine behind some of the most iconic records ever made by Black artists like Aretha Franklin and Wilson Pickett. That studio, it became a kind of sanctuary where the only thing that mattered was the music. And check this out. Their second studio was literally a converted casket showroom. No joke. It was leaky, it was definitely not glamorous, but man, it had the sound. Artists from Cher to the Stones came here, sometimes locking themselves in the bathroom to write lyrics, just to soak up that one-of-a-kind Alabama soul. But the surprise is, they don't stop with the music. Not even close. Alabama is also the birthplace of some really famous cultural traditions, legendary rivalries, and even everyday inventions that you and I use all the time. All right, quick question. When you think Mardi Gras, you think New Orleans, right? Of course you do. Well, guess what? The very first Mardi Gras celebration in the U.S. was actually in Mobile, Alabama, all the way back in 1703. That's over a decade before New Orleans even got in on the action. And while the Big Easy is all about the beads, Mobile has its own awesome tradition. They throw moon pies from the floats. How cool is that? Then there's this story. In the tiny town of Monroeville, two future literary giants grew up as best friends, Harper Lee and Truman Capote. In fact, the character Dill in To Kill a Mockingbird, that was based on Capote. Lee was also his crucial research partner for his masterpiece in Cold Blood. But then, her own book became a massive, world-changing success, and Capote's jealousy completely shattered a friendship that had seemed unbreakable. Just a wild story. And how about an invention pretty much all of us use every single day? It starts with Mary Anderson from Alabama. In 1903, she's on a trip to New York and sees a streetcar driver who can barely see through the snow on his windshield. So she goes home, sketches out a window cleaning device, and gets a patent for the world's first effective windshield wiper. And the crazy part? She never profited from it. But her simple idea literally changed driving for everyone forever. So we've gone from a simple device to clean a window to one of the most complicated machines ever built. Seriously. The story of how Alabama went from the Deep South to deep space might be the most mind-blowing chapter of all. Yup. Huntsville, Alabama is nicknamed Rocket City. And that's not just some cute nickname, it's a title they earned by being at the absolute center of one of humanity's greatest adventures. This whole transformation was led by Dr. Wernher von Braun, a German scientist who, along with his team, was brought to Huntsville right after World War II. And there, they turned all of their brainpower to a new mission, putting a man on the moon. And the result of all that work? The Saturn V rocket. This thing wasn't just any rocket. It was, and still is, the single most powerful rocket to ever successfully fly. Think about that. And every single mission that carried our astronauts to the moon, the rocket was developed right there in Huntsville.
So when you think about that iconic moment, Neil Armstrong taking one small step, just remember, he was sitting on top of an absolute masterpiece of engineering that was born in Alabama.
I mean, from soul music to space travel, we've covered some seriously surprising stuff already. But you know how it is. The deeper you dig, the more fascinating little details you uncover. Like, did you know the very first 911 call in the entire country was made in Haleyville, Alabama, back in 1968? Or that Wikipedia's co-founder, Jimmy Wales, is from Huntsville? Alabama was the first state to make Christmas a holiday. It's got the country's only all-water mail route, the first electric streetcar system. It even has an official state spirit, Coneco Ridge whiskey. So what you start to see is this picture of a place that's way more complex and influential than the stereotype we often hear, you know? It's a place of unexpected connections, deep history, and some truly world-changing ideas. And maybe that's the real point of all this. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a state, a city, or even a person. The headline is never the whole story, right? The truth is always richer, sometimes messier,